you're actually deeply affecting performance in ways that the designer shouldn't, couldn't, wouldn't ever want to understand. But the engineer is responsible for doing it. So you're now crossing the abstraction layer between the designer and the engineer, and you end up with the people fighting each other. And we had very, very many instances where a designer would make a small change, and then 3 weeks later, the engineer would finally sleuth down why there was performance bottlenecks occurring. To give you an idea, this one right here, Webkit transition all, 1 second, ease in, ease out. How many people here use a text editor where it does autocomplete for you? So we had a designer that was messing around in Coda, and Coda just added the capability on the CSS side of things to autocomplete stuff for you. And they just included the new CSS3 libraries. And so he was typing along once, and then this thing auto-completed for him by accident. And he's like, oh, I wonder what that does. And he just left it on the div item. It took us a week to figure out what was going on, because he put that on a child element 16 elements down in the chain, and it really just causes problems. So what happened was, we had to learn all of these CSS attribute items that really are the world of the engineer, that have been handed over to the world of the designer. And we wrote them down, and we began creating rules for the designers. You're no longer allowed to touch these attribute items in CSS. But then the designer, rightfully so, would come back at us and say, but wait a minute, box shadows are my domain. That is part of design. Text stroke is part of my design. Animations are part of design. So we had this really weird world where we're like, hey, if you ever want to touch animations or touch these things, you have to meet up and pair program with an engineer to do it. And we just started getting into this world where like, this is not fun. This is not the way you're supposed to build stuff. Another big realization is there's no debug tools to find CSS3 performance errors. There's absolutely no debug tools to help you do this. In the web world, you can go and see like, why is my web page running slow? You run yslow, or you run any one of the tools in the inspector in Chrome that are very, very good these days. There's nothing like yslow for CSS3. This caused a lot of discomfort between our designers and engineers. We literally had situations where people were stopping enjoying their jobs. And the point is we should all enjoy our jobs as we build stuff. So here's what we did. We cataloged all of these quirks. We refactored all of our CSS and sort of created demarc zones between the designers and engineers. And here's the worst part. We're going to concentrate on this a lot today. We had to audit every third-party library that we were using. This is the killer. Because any engineer comes with a sort of a war chest of your favorite libraries. Everybody's got their favorite out there. The problem is if you bring those libraries to the table when you're doing HTML5 development, then you've got to refactor the CSS for all of those libraries, if they include any CSS, to make sure that there's nothing going on weird in there. And you'd think that the people that develop some of these libraries would be really good at these performance things. Things like jQuery or jQuery Mobile, or my favorite back in the day was Isotope. These are built by very, very talented engineers that come from the web world, that come from the PC world. They don't come from the mobile world. So Isotope, which is written primarily by DeSandro with help from Paul Irish, you'd think those two would have it, right? I put those two as probably the top 5 people that most people think when they think of JavaScript engineers. Yet both Isotope and other things that are attached to the Isotope library absolutely are incompatible with mobile development. And so we started getting depressed because some of our favorite libraries, we either have to massively refactor them or begin to not use them at all. We have this material this presentation is available online. We can give you a link afterwards. We have lots of study links that sort of kind of walk through the lessons learned here. Second one, we thought we knew how to code when we went into this process, but we really didn't know how to code. we learned how to code using the most powerful machine that exists, a PC. And that's actually an improper way to learn how to code for performance. What you do is you go to the weakest device first, learn that, and then go up the chain from there. And what we realized is we had to relearn these 4 key areas of development in order to really start to understand our instrument in terms of HTML5 performance. So DOM manipulation, event handling, data handling, and image handling, this is basically the core of development in the first place. We thought we knew how to do DOM manipulation, but we didn't. We thought we knew how to do all of these, but we actually came up and realized, wow, we had to relearn everything. And the result of that is we scoured the web for blog posts, any blog post possible, people talking about these things for performance enhancements in each of these areas. And we had to refactor our JavaScript libraries again for these performance enhancements. This was actually kind of fun, to learn the new techniques. We actually became much better developers as a result of this. There's probably 6 different ways of doing DOM insertion, and we only knew 2 of them going into our project, but now we know all 6. We know when each one is good, when each one is bad. Again, we had to audit any third-party library that touched DOM. And again, this is the theme that I'm trying to get past here. This one knocked out probably 50% of our libraries alone. We were like, you know what? We just can't refactor. Once you get into trying to refactor DOM manipulation techniques inside of like some jQuery libraries, you're getting into the realm of like, sorry, but we can't use this library at all anymore. We have links for this as well. Safari and Chrome are not created equally. None of the browsers are. I think we all know that from doing web development, but it's worse in the mobile side of things. It's much worse. And so learning all the quirks that are between Safari and Chrome is mind-numbing. When you want to do an animation that has a bounce at the end, the way that you can do that on Chrome versus Safari, even though they both use Webkit, it's amazing. It's like you can go past 0 on a Bezier curve in Chrome, but you can't in Safari. And there's all these just, yes, you can on this, no, you can't on that. So even if they're both Webkit, they have different implementations. And then in Chrome, it depends on which version of Chrome you're in and which version of Android you're playing with. So all of the crap that you have to deal with in the web world between IE6 and up, sort of weird things you have to deal with, it's multiply that probably by a factor of 10 in the mobile world that you have to deal with to get the app to work exactly right. Some examples that are particularly frustrating. The JavaScript engines and implementations of those engines are slightly different on each browser in the mobile world. So if you can get a scroll view working perfectly on an iPad, and then you try it out on a Galaxy, and it feels weird. These types of things can drive you mad, and it's very, very difficult to code for. To have this promise of one code base to work on all devices is actually very, very tricky. Again, we had to catalog all these differences, refactor our code. We actually destroyed a couple of Kindles in this process. And we, again, had to audit all of our third-party libraries to see how they handle these differences as well. As well, a lot of libraries come with handling Explorer versus other browsers already, and sometimes this screws itself up in the process. We have links again. A lot of HTML5 components flat out just don't work. They're bold-faced lies. A lot of people say, hey, can you run an HTML5 app offline and use cache manifest to do so? Do not bet on this at all. We tried to break through this for 6 months. We did find a way to do it, but it wasn't using cache manifest. When you hear people promising all these great attributes like this, consider they're not even in beta. Most of them are in alpha, and they had their buggy would be a positive statement for some of these things. So for example, cache manifest, Android touch events are super duper tricky. They don't report on a constant scale, so if you're in a 3D plane and you pivot the plane, it won't handle the touch event properly unless you're at the actual Z0 point. So you can actually get into some really weird esoteric stuff where it says, hey, it works fine, and then you get in there and you're like, no, it doesn't. And you think you're the one going crazy. Well, you're not. There's still a lot of bugs that go on in the world. So again, pretty much the same thing. We had to catalog all these weird attributes, remove the things where we just said, let's just not use this. And again, we had to audit any third-party libraries to make sure that we handled them. And at the end of this, we had this very depressing moment where we voted as a group not to use any third-party libraries because it just became too difficult. So we got rid of jQuery, jQuery Mobile, we got rid of Isotope, we got rid of every third-party library that touched the DOM, that touched events in any way, handled images in any way. Even our favorite images loaded, we got rid of. Written by Paul Evers himself. We literally got rid of everything. And the only thing we integrate with now on the back end is Backbone, because it doesn't touch those things, or the way it touches those things is more modern. And I want to let you guys know, like, this was a moment where we were like, let's just shut down the company, because this isn't fun anymore. We can't bring our war chest to the table, but we said, no, let's continue on. And so all these things we had to give up, jQuery animations, anything jQuery, any jQuery plugin. And I've been using jQuery forever, and I was so used to jQuery, and I was like, wow, I have to learn this no syntax